My grandmother's penthouse overlooked Central Park, all floor-to-ceiling windows and marble surfaces that caught the afternoon light. At 92, Elena Ashford still commanded a room with nothing but her presence. "Tell me, darling," she said, pouring tea from her silver service, "how have you been spending your trust fund? $4 million is substantial. I do hope you're investing it wisely." I froze, teacup halfway to my lips. "My, what?" "Your trust fund," she smiled indulgently. "The one I established when you turned 18. You're 26 now, you've had access for 8 years. Don't tell me you've spent it all already." My mouth went dry. "Grandma, I don't have a trust fund. I've never had a trust fund." Her smile faded. "What are you talking about?" "I'm serious. I work 2 jobs just to afford my studio apartment. I have student loans. I drive a 15-year-old Honda. If I had $4 million, do you think I'd be living like this?" The teacup rattled as she set it down. "That's impossible. I established that trust when you turned 18. Your mother was supposed to inform you." "My mother, of course." "She never told me," I said slowly. "Not once in 8 years." Grandma's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "Get me my phone, now." I handed her the phone with trembling hands. She dialed with sharp, precise movements. "Catherine," Grandma's voice could have frozen fire, "we need to talk about Melissa's trust fund, immediately." I couldn't hear my mother's response, but I watched my grandmother's expression darken with each passing second. "That's a lie," Grandma said coldly. "She's sitting right here and she has no idea what I'm talking about. You have 1 hour to get to my apartment with an explanation. Don't bother arguing. 1 hour, Catherine, or I'm calling my lawyers." She hung up and looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before: fear. "8 years," she whispered. "What has she been doing for 8 years?" We didn't speak much while we waited. Grandma made phone calls, to her financial advisor, to her attorney. I sat on her white leather sofa, my mind racing. $4 million, since I was 18. I thought about the nights I'd worked double shifts at the restaurant, the semester I'd almost dropped out of college because I couldn't afford books, the dental work I'd been putting off for 3 years, the wedding I'd had to skip because I couldn't afford the plane ticket. All while I supposedly had $4 million. My mother arrived in 45 minutes, my stepfather Derek in tow. Catherine Monroe swept into the apartment like she owned it, designer handbag, Chanel suit, practiced smile. "Mother, this is absurd. Melissa is obviously confused." "Sit down," Grandma commanded, "both of you." Something in her voice made them obey. "Where is Melissa's money?" Grandma asked simply. "I don't know what you're talking about," Mom said, but her eyes darted to Derek. "Just for a second, but I saw it." $4 million, Grandma continued. "Established in a trust fund on Melissa's 18th birthday. You were the trustee until she turned 21, at which point she was supposed to gain full access. She's 26 now. Where is the money, Catherine?" "There must be some mistake with the paperwork." "Don't lie to me." Grandma's voice cracked like a whip. "I've just spoken to my financial advisor. The trust was established. The money was transferred. You signed all the documents as trustee. So I'll ask you one more time, where is my granddaughter's money?" The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Derek cleared his throat. "We can explain." "Shut up," Mom hissed at him. And in that moment I knew they'd taken it. Somehow they'd stolen my entire inheritance. "How much is left?" I asked quietly. "Of the $4 million, how much is left?" Mom's face crumbled. "Melissa, sweetie, you have to understand." "How much?" "Nothing," Derek admitted. "It's gone." The room spun. "Gone, all of it." "We were going to pay it back," Mom said desperately. "We had investments, we had plans." "You stole from your own daughter," Grandma said, her voice deadly quiet. "You stole her future and let her struggle while you—" she looked at Mom's designer clothes, Derek's Rolex, "while you spent her money on yourselves." "We needed it," Mom cried. "Derek's business was failing, we were going to lose everything." "So you took what wasn't yours," I said. The shock was wearing off now, replaced by cold, crystalline rage. "For 8 years you let me think I was poor. You let me work myself to exhaustion. You watched me drop out of college for a semester because I couldn't afford it. And the whole time you were spending my money." "We were going to tell you," Derek said weakly. "When?" I demanded. When were you going to tell me, after you'd spent every last cent? They had no answer. Grandma's attorney, Richard Castellano, arrived within the hour. He listened to everything with an expression that grew progressively grimmer. This is embezzlement, he said finally. Clear-cut, criminal charges, civil suits. Mrs. Monroe, Mr. Hayes, you're looking at serious prison time. Mom started crying. Derek's face went grey. However, Richard continued, looking at me, prosecution is complex and lengthy. We'd need to trace every dollar, prove intent, go through years of litigation. It could take 5 years to see the inside of a courtroom. I want my money back, I said, all of it. There is no money, Derek said hollowly. The business failed anyway, we're in debt. Even if we sold everything, we couldn't repay more than $300,000. $300,000 out of $4 million. Then they go to prison, I said flatly. Melissa, please, Mom grabbed my hand. I'm your mother. I jerked away. My mother wouldn't have stolen my entire future. Richard pulled me aside while Grandma read my parents the riot act. I understand you're angry, he said quietly. You have every right to be, but consider this, criminal prosecution takes years. It's traumatic, expensive, and uncertain, and even if they're convicted, you likely won't see restitution for a decade. What's the alternative? We make them give us everything they have. Now, houses, cars, retirement funds, every asset they own, we liquidate it all. It won't be $4 million, but it'll be something. And we make them sign a confession, a promissory note for the rest, with terms that destroy them financially for the rest of their lives. That's not enough, I said. No, he agreed, but it's faster, and it leaves them free to work, which means they can actually pay you back over time. From prison, they pay nothing. I looked at my mother, sobbing on my grandmother's couch. Part of me wanted to see her in handcuffs. But a larger part wanted something else, something slower, something that would hurt longer. Fine, I said, but I want every asset, and I want them to sign a confession, a detailed confession, everything they took, everything they spent it on, every lie they told. Done, Richard said. Over the next 2 weeks, my parents' lives were dismantled piece by piece. Their house in Westchester, bought with my money, was sold. The Mercedes and Tesla in their garage gone, the timeshare in Aruba, the boat docked in Connecticut, the jewelry, the art, the designer furniture. Everything. Mom's retirement account from her previous job, Derek's 401k, stocks, bonds, savings accounts, it all went into a separate account in my name. Richard's team was ruthless. They found every hidden asset, every luxury purchase. They traced my money through 8 years of bank statements and discovered things that made my stomach turn. Caribbean vacations while I ate ramen, a $30,000 watch purchased the same month I'd slept in my car for a week. In total, they recovered $847,000. Less than a quarter of what they'd stolen. The confession was 32 pages long. Every transaction, every lie, every time they'd looked me in the eye and pretended to be struggling alongside me. They signed it at Grandma's penthouse. Mom's hand shook so badly she could barely write her name. The promissory note, Richard said, sliding another document across the table, requires you to pay $75,000 per year until the debt is satisfied. If you miss a payment, if you file for bankruptcy, if you attempt to hide assets, criminal charges will be filed immediately, and this confession will be submitted as evidence. Derek looked at the number. That's almost 40 years. Then you'd better stay healthy, I said coldly. They signed. My parents moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens. Mom got a job as an administrative assistant. Derek worked at a car dealership. The whispers started immediately in their social circle. People talked. How had the Hayeses fallen so far so fast? Rumors swirled, fraud, debt, scandal. I didn't correct them, let them wonder. Grandma, meanwhile, was already working on ways to restore what had been taken. I'm adding you to my will, she said. You'll receive additional compensation when I pass. It won't erase what they did, but it's something. You don't have to do that, I said. I know, but I'm 92, darling. I won't live forever and I want to make this right. She paused. I'm also very angry with myself. I should have checked on you, made sure you knew about the trust. I assumed Catherine would. She shook her head. I failed you. You didn't steal from me, I said. They did. But I saw the guilt in her eyes and knew she'd carry it until she died. With $847,000 in my account, I quit my restaurant job and focused on finishing my degree. I was working on a paper in the university library when I ran into someone I hadn't seen in 5 years. Marcus Chen had been my boyfriend in college before I dropped out that semester. We'd lost touch after I'd left. "Melissa," he stared, "I thought you were working restaurants." "Long story," I said. "How have you been?" We got coffee. He told me about his job in tech, his startup idea, his life. I told him a carefully edited version of the trust fund saga. "Wait," he said slowly. "Your mom was the trustee, Catherine Monroe." "Unfortunately." Something flickered across his face. "Melissa, I think I know where some of your money went." Marcus pulled up a website on his phone. "Remember Derek's business, the one that supposedly failed?" "Vaguely, some kind of tech startup." "Hayes Industries, they did AI integration for small businesses." He scrolled through an article. "It didn't fail. It was sold 3 years ago for $2.3 million. My blood went cold. "What?" "I remember because my former boss almost bought it. The sale was public record. Derek Hayes sold Hayes Industries in October 2022 for $2.3 million cash. But he said the business failed. He said that's why the money was gone." Marcus looked at me grimly. "He lied. The business succeeded. And unless he's the worst money manager in history, he should still have most of that $2.3 million. They'd lied, even in the confession, even under threat of criminal prosecution, they'd lied. Richard Castellano went to work immediately. Within 3 days, he'd uncovered the truth. Derek had indeed sold Hayes Industries, but the money hadn't gone into his personal accounts. It had gone into an offshore trust in the Cayman Islands under his brother's name. "Sophisticated," Richard admitted, "and difficult to prove. The trust is technically owned by Ryan Hayes, Derek's brother. Derek has no legal claim to it." "But it's my money," I said. "Money he stole from me, filtered through a business and hid overseas." "Proving that chain of custody will be nearly impossible. We'd need Ryan to testify that Derek controls the trust, and brothers don't typically turn on each other." "Then we make him," I said. "How?" I thought about it. What do we know about Ryan Hayes? Ryan Hayes was 41, divorced, with 2 kids he paid child support for. He worked as a financial consultant in Miami and had a gambling problem that had gotten him banned from 3 casinos. "He's in debt," Richard reported. "About $180,000 to some very unfriendly people, not the kind of debt you ignore." "Can we use that?" Richard smiled slowly. "We can certainly try." We flew to Miami. Ryan agreed to meet us at a hotel bar, probably hoping we were potential clients. His face fell when he saw Richard's lawyer credentials. "I'm not discussing Derek's business," he said immediately. "That's fine," I said pleasantly. "We're here to discuss yours, specifically your debt. We hear you owe money to some people who don't accept installment plans." He paled. "How do you?" "We know everything," Richard said smoothly, "including the fact that you're holding $2.1 million in a Cayman trust that belongs to this young woman, money your brother stole from her." "I don't know what you're talking about." I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer that money to me, all of it. In exchange, I'll pay off your debt and give you $100,000 to start fresh. And if I refuse, then we inform your creditors that you're holding $2 million you've been hiding from them. I imagine they'll be very interested in collecting." The color drained from his face completely. It took 2 weeks to navigate the offshore banking laws, but eventually $2.1 million appeared in my account. Ryan kept his $100,000 and his kneecaps. His debts were paid. He disappeared back into his life, probably relieved. But now I had proof that Derek had lied in his confession, proof that they'd hidden assets during the liquidation. I called my parents. Derek answered. "Hi Derek," I said pleasantly. "Remember that failed business of yours? The one that supposedly lost all my money. Funny thing, I found it." Silence. "I found the $2.1 million in Ryan's trust, which means you violated our agreement, which means criminal charges. Richard is filing paperwork as we speak." Wait, Derek's voice cracked. We can explain. No, I said. You're done explaining, you're done lying. You stole from me, you hid assets, and you violated a legal agreement. You're going to prison, Derek, both of you. I hung up before he could respond. The arrests happened on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there. Richard thought it would be too emotionally difficult. But I saw the mugshots later. Mom's makeup smeared, her hair disheveled, Derek looking 10 years older than he had 2 months ago. They were charged with embezzlement, fraud, and violation of a legal settlement. The hidden offshore account made everything worse. It showed premeditation, sophistication, intent to defraud. The prosecutor told me they were looking at 8 to 12 years each. How do you feel? Grandma asked when I told her. I don't know, I admitted. Angry, sad, vindicated, sick. That's normal, she said gently. Catherine is still your mother, but she made choices, Melissa, terrible choices, and now she has to face consequences. I nodded, but that night, alone in my apartment, I cried for the mother I'd thought I had, the one who would have protected me, not robbed me. Their lawyer reached out 3 weeks before the trial. Mom and Derek wanted to make a deal. They're offering to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for reduced sentences, Richard explained. 5 years each, eligible for parole after 3. What do you think? I asked. I think a trial is risky. Juries are unpredictable. This guarantees they serve time, guarantees convictions on their records. It's not nothing. But it's not 8 to 12 years. No, it's not, he paused. This is your decision, Melissa. What do you want? I thought about my mother, about Derek, about the 8 years they'd stolen from me. And I thought about spending the next 3 years watching them in a courtroom, reliving every betrayal, every lie. Tell them I'll agree to the plea, I said, on one condition. What's that? They have to testify. I want them to stand in court and admit what they did, every detail on the record. I want their confession public. Richard smiled. Done. The courtroom was nearly empty. Just me, Grandma, Richard, the judge, and the court reporter. Plea hearings aren't spectator events. But the testimony was recorded, every word. My mother stood at the defendant's table and admitted to embezzling $4 million from her daughter. She detailed how she'd intercepted mail from Grandma's lawyers, forged my signature on documents, created fake account statements to show Grandma the money was being managed properly. Derek admitted to hiding the business sale proceeds, to lying in the confession, to spending my money on luxuries while I struggled. They both apologized. Mom cried. I felt nothing. The judge sentenced them to 5 years each. They were remanded immediately. Outside the courthouse, Grandma squeezed my hand. It's over now. But it wasn't, not quite. 2 days after the sentencing, I received a letter from my mother, already postmarked from the women's correctional facility. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Melissa *. I know you won't forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But there's something you need to know. Something I couldn't say in court because it would have implicated someone else. Your father, your real father, James, he didn't abandon you like I told you. When you were 2, he found out about your trust fund from your grandmother. He wanted custody because he thought he could access it. I refused. We fought. He threatened to take you, so I made him a deal. I'd pay him $50,000 to disappear and give up his parental rights. He took it. I used your trust fund money to pay him off. I told myself it was to protect you, that he would have been worse. But really, I just wanted full control of your money. He's been writing to you for years. I intercepted every letter. They're in a box in the attic of our old house. The new owners might still have it in storage. I'm so sorry I destroyed everything. I know that now. Mom *. I read the letter 3 times, hands shaking. My father, the father I'd been told wanted nothing to do with me. He'd been trying to reach me for years. The new owners of my parents' old house were kind enough to let me search the attic. I found the box buried under old Christmas decorations, a cardboard file box labeled storage in my mother's handwriting. Inside were 47 letters, all addressed to me, all unopened. I took them home and read them in chronological order. The first was dated 3 months after he'd signed away his rights. I know I made the wrong choice. I was desperate, broke, and your mother convinced me you'd be better off. I've regretted it every day since. The letters traced his life. He'd gotten sober, found work as a mechanic, met someone, got married, had 2 more kids, my half-siblings. He'd wanted me to know them, to know him. The most recent letter was from 6 months ago. You're 26 now. I've missed your entire life. I don't know if you'll ever read these, but I hope someday you'll know I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped loving you. He'd included his phone number. I stared at it for an hour before I found the courage to dial. Hello, the voice was rough, uncertain. Is this James Porter? Yes, who's calling? It's Melissa, Melissa Monroe, your daughter. The silence on the other end was so complete I thought the call had dropped. Then Melissa, his voice broke. Oh my God, is it really you? It's really me. He cried, I cried. We talked for 3 hours. He lived in Oregon now, worked at an auto shop he co-owned. His wife Linda had always known about me. My half-siblings, Katie, 16, and Sam, 14, had been asking about me for years. Your mother told me you knew about the deal I made, he said. She said you hated me for it, that's why my letters were being returned. She lied, I said. She told me you didn't want me, that you'd abandoned us. Never, he said fiercely. Never. I made a terrible mistake taking that money, but I never stopped wanting to know you. We made plans. I would fly to Oregon next month, meet him, Linda, and my siblings, start over. Melissa, he said before we hung up, I know I have no right to ask this, but I've been saving money for you to pay back what I took with interest. It's not much, about $83,000, but it's yours if you want it. I thought about the $3 million now sitting in my account, about the years of lies and theft. Keep it, I said. Use it for Katie and Sam's college funds. Are you sure? I'm sure. I have enough now. And I want my little brother and sister to have better opportunities than I did. His sob of gratitude made something tight in my chest finally loosen. Flying to Oregon felt like stepping into an alternate universe. James met me at the airport with a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, Melissa." He looked like me, same eyes, same nose, same awkward smile. Linda was warm and genuine, immediately pulling me into a hug. We've been so excited to meet you. Katie and Sam were shy at first, but by dinner they were showing me their rooms, their school projects, asking me endless questions. We spent a week together. James took me to his shop, introduced me to his business partner. We hiked in the mountains. Linda taught me her grandmother's recipe for blackberry pie. It wasn't perfect. There was awkwardness, gaps of 24 lost years that couldn't be bridged in a week. But it was real, it was honest. It was family. I was packing to leave when James knocked on my guest room door. Can we talk? He asked. Of course. He sat on the edge of the bed looking nervous. There's something else your mother never told you, about the trust fund. My stomach dropped. What now? When your grandmother established it, she established 2 trust funds. One for you, one for Katie, my daughter, with Linda. $4 million each. I stared at him. What? Your grandmother wanted to make sure all her grandchildren were provided for, even though Katie wasn't Catherine's daughter. But Catherine was supposed to tell you about Katie, help us all stay connected. He swallowed hard. She told your grandmother that I refused contact, that I wanted nothing to do with any of you, so your grandmother stopped trying to reach out to me. So Katie has a trust fund she doesn't know about. Had past tense. His face was grim. Catherine was listed as co-trustee on Katie's fund too, because your grandmother thought she was helping manage family finances. 3 years ago, when Katie turned 15, Catherine told your grandmother that I was mismanaging Katie's money. She convinced your grandmother to transfer control fully to her until Katie turned 21. Horror washed over me. She stole from Katie too. All of it, same as she did to you. When I found out last year and contacted your grandmother's lawyers, Catherine claimed I'd spent it on drugs and gambling, that she was protecting Katie. It was my word against hers, and I had a history of addiction. No one believed me. That's why you took the deal, I said slowly. The $50,000, you needed it for Katie. I needed it to hire a lawyer to fight for custody, to prove I was clean. But by the time I got my act together, Catherine had convinced the courts I was unstable. I was only granted supervised visits, and even those eventually stopped when Catherine moved you both to New York. I thought about Katie laughing over dinner, Sam showing me his model trains, my siblings who'd been robbed just like me. And I thought about my mother, sitting in prison, still keeping secrets. Richard Castellano's office had become disturbingly familiar over the past months. Another theft, he said, reading through the trust documents James had provided. Same pattern, same methodology. Catherine Monroe has a distinctive criminal signature, I'll give her that. Can we recover Katie's money? Some of it, probably. It's all part of the same scheme. We can add charges, extend the sentence. No, I interrupted. I don't want her sentence extended. I want my half of the original settlement. Richard blinked. What? The $847,000 we recovered from the liquidation. I want to split it. Keep half for myself, give half to James for Katie and Sam. Melissa, that's your money. You're entitled to. They're my family, I said firmly. Katie's trust fund was stolen just like mine. She deserves restitution just as much as I do. And Sam, he wasn't even born when this started, but he suffered too. No Christmas presents because James was paying lawyers. No college fund because of my mother's lies. You're absolutely certain? Completely. Richard drafted the paperwork. I called James that night. I don't understand, he said when I explained. You're giving us $423,000. It's not giving, it's sharing what should have been Katie's anyway, and I want you to use some of it to file for restoration of your parental rights. Mom's in prison now, she can't fight you. Melissa, I don't know what to say. Say you'll let me be part of Katie and Sam's lives, that's all I want. Always, he said, you're their sister, your family. 6 months later I stood in Grandma's penthouse again, but this time James was with me, so were Linda, Katie and Sam. Grandma was 93 now, frailer but still sharp. She'd been horrified to learn about Katie's stolen trust fund, mortified that she'd believed Catherine's lies about James. I should have verified, she said for the 100th time. I should have investigated. You trusted your daughter, James said gently. That's not a character flaw. She'd immediately established a new trust for Katie, $4 million, with James as sole trustee this time, and she doubled it for Sam to make up for the years of hardship. But more than that, she'd embraced them all. Katie and Sam called her Grandma Elena, Linda joined her book club, James fixed things around her apartment. We were a family, complicated, pieced together from broken parts but real. As for Mom and Derek, they had 3 more years on their sentences. Mom wrote occasionally. I didn't write back yet. Maybe someday, maybe never. I'd started grad school using the recovered money. Business law, I was going to help people like me, people whose families stole from them. Richard had already offered me an internship at his firm. Marcus and I had started dating again. He'd helped me through the darkest parts of the investigation, and somehow we'd found our way back to each other. Life wasn't perfect. I still had nightmares about discovering the theft. I still struggled with trust issues. Some wounds don't heal quickly. But I had my money back, most of it anyway. I had my father back. I had siblings I adored. I had Grandma sharp and fierce and full of love. Most importantly, I had the truth. The truth about who my parents really were, about who had really loved me all along, about what family actually means. Penny, for your thoughts, Grandma asked, catching me staring out at Central Park. Just thinking about how different my life would be if you hadn't asked me that question, about the trust fund. The sliding door moments, she mused. One question changes everything. I'm glad you asked. So am I, darling, she squeezed my hand. So am I. I looked around the room. James was teaching Sam chess. Katie and Linda were laughing over something on Linda's phone. Marcus was discussing his startup with Grandma's financial advisor. This was my family now, not the one I'd been born into, but the one I'd found, the one I'd fought for. And it was worth every moment of the fight. My mother had stolen $4 million from me, but in losing that money, in clawing my way back from betrayal, I'd gained something infinitely more valuable. I'd gained the truth, I'd gained freedom, I'd gained people who actually loved me. You can't put a price on that. Though if I'm being honest, the $3 million in my account doesn't hurt either.